Tuesday edition of Gaming Morning Show. Thanks for being along with us wherever you may be. Facebook Gaming, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and at gamingmorningshow.tv. And excited to welcome in Victor Burgos, the creative director for Burgos Games, and making the new game, Neko Ghost Jump. Now, I had a release date. This game is coming out pretty soon, right, Victor?
So actually, it came out in early access a few weeks ago on Steam and Epic Game Store.
And I was going to ask you about early access, which I definitely want to do. When you release a game through early access and you start like collecting feedback from that particular game, how does that kind of change? Like, what have you learned so far in early access that might be implemented when the game goes into the post-early access stage?
Yeah, so developers use early access for a lot of different reasons, but typically it's so that they can get the hands a little bit earlier to the players, right? Especially the ones that are hardcore, the ones that really would like to enjoy the game, or at least provide feedback for the players, or sorry, for the developers. And so this is what we're using it for, really, is to get feedback from the community and try to improve it so that when we go 1.0, the gold launch, that it's as polished as possible. Like all the little things that we probably may have ignored during development, your average gamer will pick up on that, right? They'll be like, if they complain about, oh, movement's a little floaty. Okay, cool. I mean, let's work on movement a little bit. Let's try to make it a little less floaty for folks. Or recently there was something about combat just feeling a little stale or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's improve combat. And so actually we just did. We added two new attacks to the game, and it also helped a little bit with movement as well. And so stuff like that feedback, that back and forth between the community is really great when you're in early access, because you can take an average game and make it great, within, certain, 6 to 12 months or whatever. I mean, I don't know. There's like a lot of early access games that are still early access, even like 20 years later. Which I mean, for some of them are like still doing great, because I think like Project Zomboid is like one example that has been around early access for like ever, but they're still making a ton of money. I think they might have just went 1.0, or they're going to be 1.0 really soon. But I know they released some big update and they got a lot of traction again. But I mean, basically, you got the flip side of that, right? You do have the asset flippers. You got the early access games that just stop ever produce any kind of content. They just give up, basically. So we're not going to be like that, though. I'm definitely trying to make sure that we I have my eyes set on 1.0 and stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice. And we've looked forward to 1.0's coming. Let's look back at how this all started. And this has been in the works for a couple years, right? This started as a game jam game. Some of our audience might be unfamiliar with what a game jam is and kind of how that process evolves from game jam to full development. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So to be honest, I think game jams are like super important in game development, or especially if you're starting off game development, or you're potentially thinking about a career in game development. Like, jump into a game jam, like randomly join some teams. There's always teams that are like looking for random people. Figure out whatever your skill set is and you want to try it out, and just do a game jam, or just do solo, whatever. But they're super important because they're time constraints. There's usually a time constraint, typically anywhere between 48 to 72 hours. Sometimes a little bit longer. And then you have like a theme that usually you have a theme. Sometimes you don't have a theme, but most game jams revolve around a certain theme, and then they have a whole bunch of rules. So like you're constrained between the time, the length of the game jam, and then whatever rules they have, right? And so with those three, there's other constraints usually, but those three major constraints for each game jam, you're basically prototyping quickly, like super quick, a game. So in Neko Ghost Jump's case, the theme was like the other side of the coin, and so I'm over here thinking about like what is similar but like opposites, right? So like a platformer, typically it's either a 2D or a 3D, but why not both, right? So like it's the opposites of 2D is 3D, blah blah blah. Okay, boom. Then you have your physical form, right? But then what's the opposite of that? Is a ghost form, right? So that's where the ghost form and the cat form came into be. And but yeah, so that game jam was 5 days, and the theme I already said the theme, and there was a whole bunch of rules though. There were like a whole bunch of rules. But the so it's basically just trying to create a game in a certain amount of time, uh, with some rule sets. That's there's a lot of game jams. Like itch.io has like a calendar of game jams, and literally there's probably 50 to 100 game jams happen every month. So like if you want to you're bored on a weekend, look, there's probably a game jam happening that weekend. Jump on one, right?
Victor
Nice.
Burgos is our guest on Gaming Morning Show. And you talked about game jams as being a way that maybe if you're interested in game development, participate in something like that. That kind of gives us a chance to ask you about your origin story. How did you get into game development?
It was a little bit of a rough road. So originally, I was supposed to go to school out of high school for a computer science degree, right? And I thought that was going to be my segue into game development. However, that didn't happen. I actually ended up 9/11 happened, and so I ended up going to enlist in the United States Marine Corps. So I actually ended up doing 12 years in the Marines. Um, Even then, though, my idea of wanting to go into game development was still like there, and so my first duty station was actually Iwakuni, Japan. So like I go to Japan, like it's like oh man, video games like it's like the culture is like all revolves around video games, anime, idols, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But whatever, it's Japan. And so I was like, oh, okay, I want to do video games again. So while I was in, I attempted to actually. I don't know if y'all remember this, but there was this online thing. It was a funny commercial. It was from Westwood. No, was it Westwood College Online? And so there's like there's this ad about like game testers. If you want to be a game testers, here's this number 1-800 blah 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 blah. And so, anyways, so I was like, that was at the time. There was like that was only really the option, especially for me because I was in Japan, not like in the United States. So I had to do like correspondence, online school, and so um, I submitted my application. I got accepted, but then I got deployed. So then I got deployed to Kuwait, and this was like an operation, in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, or actually it was technically OIF, Iraqi Freedom. Then it converted over to Enduring Freedom. But so I missed my chance, and then I came back. I was like, okay, well, I still want to do something, and I want to do a degree. So I ended up getting like a computer engineering degree, which was like terrible. Like it was so boring. Like that degree was like so boring. I did not like that at all. And so I was like, okay, this is not what I want to do. Like after I get out of the Marine Corps, and eventually my time was up. I was like, okay, I'm getting out. What am I gonna do? At the time, I lived in Beaufort, South Carolina, and there was a school nearby-ish called Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, and it's an art school primarily, but they did have a game development degree. And so I'm like, okay, I can just whatever cross the state border and just go to school full time, whatever. And so that's what I did. I used my GI Bill, and I went to SCAD full time after getting out of the Marine Corps, and I ended up getting my degree in 2017, bachelor's in fine arts, and I forgot the fancy word, but basically it's a game development degree. And so yeah, but before even that, and this is why I said game jams are super important. I was already doing game jams. I was already like doing portfolio stuff. I was already freelancing at the time. I was already making money while I was in school because like people would hire me for like odd jobs here and there. And so I ended up building up my reputation little by little, even before graduation. And then I went after graduation. I just went full time, freelancing, contract work, and I ended up getting my first like full time gig working for Monochrome Games on Contagion VR Outbreak, and so that's like a zombie horror survival game, VR game, and that was really cool. That was really awesome. I ended up shipping their early access title also, and from there, that's kind of where they had some funding issues, and I can't work for free, right? No one can work for free, or at least not for too long anyway. And so, anyways, so I had to like bounce and basically do my own thing, and that's where Burgos Games came from. I was like, well, if I'm gonna work for free, I'm gonna work for myself then. And so I did that, but I ended up still doing freelance. I still do contract work on the side too. It helps pay the bills for sure. And indie game life is not easy at all. There's always the financial burden is always in the background, always looming, like really looming, really close. And so trying to make money is always hard for indies. But yeah, so that's where Burgos came from. I was working on like some VR project, but I wasn't feeling it. And then the game jam happened for Neko Ghost Jump, and I was like, oh, this is a cool game. Maybe I can get this game out in like 1 year. Well, it's 3 years later, so obviously that didn't happen. So so yeah, so that happened, but like it's kind of weird because like it's good and bad because it's 3 years later, but the game's like grown so much. It's evolved so much for the better. Like around that 1 year mark, we ended up doing a Kickstarter for the game, and we ended up getting funded on Kickstarter. It was only like 20,000, but and you don't really get the full 20,000 anyway. But still, it was still nice to know that there was like almost 500 people that actually cared about the game and actually like backed the game. So I was like, oh, like I felt like a big confidence boost there. And then I guess it was a year later. No, it wasn't a year later, but it was like 6 months, 6 to 9 months later, whatever it was. We ended up getting a Epic Mega Grant also, so from Epic Games, and they gave us some money too. And then, but basically, it's like, oh man, we're getting some support financially, and so that's very helpful. Truth, I'm telling you. Remember that whole thing about indie devs and always like worried about money. Yeah, all this little bit helps. It's still tough. Like the money they give us isn't like a lot, so it's still I'm still scrambling for like contract work here and there, trying to make ends meet. I still have a family to support too. It's not like if it was only me, that'd be one thing. But like I have a newborn that just she just thankfully graced us with her presence last month, and so it's another addition of family, and it's another stressor. But we ended up doing E3 last year. Yeah, 2021. Yep, and so we ended up like the game actually kind of took off from there. We ended up winning like E3's like official like indie showcase. Like the fan vote. They queried the fans like live, and we ended up winning like 34% of the votes because we had like the best trailer for E3. So that was like awesome.
Wow.
We got like a lot of big press out of that, and yeah, it's been a little slow up to launch, but that was because the baby was coming out and a whole bunch of other stuff. I was more worried about my family than trying to like the game at that time.
Well,
but,
absolutely, and even KJ in our chat said congrats on the new edition. Both Sean and myself are fathers too, so congratulations on having the kiddo and all the complexities that come with trying to be a father and running your own thing and on all the things that you kind of talked about. But we appreciate learning a little bit about your background, but certainly about this game. Brendan, who just hosted us on Twitch, said this game looks like so much fun. We were able to show some of the videos from your YouTube page and from the Steam page, as you mentioned, available on Epic Game Store as well. Neko Ghost Jump, check it out. It's in early access right now. If anyone wants to keep tabs with you, we've also linked through to your Twitter, Burgos Games Twitter as well. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning on Gaming Morning Show.
hey, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That's Victor Burgos joining us on GMS. Wow. New father is always I like having those conversations, Sean. I mean, I know you do too, because it's a different ride, right? When you become a dad, it changes the game a little bit.
Yeah, your stress load for financial security is always there, but once you add in a full family to the mix, it definitely heightens that. And you mentioned just being in indie game development is never an easy path, and small things go a long way with these sort of games, especially being in early access. So if it's something that looks cool to you, even throwing it on a wish list is huge. But if you get a chance to play it, purchase the game, play it, leave a review. That word of mouth, those reviews, those wish lists, ads, that stuff goes a long way. So definitely, if this is something that interests you, take some of those small steps.
Good more on to Forgettable Vendetta. Thank you for being here. Saw that you followed within the last 24 hours on Twitch. This is a morning radio show that plays games. We just got done talking to Victor Burgos about Neko Ghost Jump, which, again, the release date, I always get a little bit confused, to be honest, Sean, about early access versus when the game is 1.0'd or whatever the case may be. So I appreciate Victor kind of walking us through that. But if you want to find the game, go here. This is at least to the Steam link. And I agree, like, I like, and Victor elaborated on it, the opposites part, right? Ghost, and then in real life. 3D, 2D. I think it's going to be a pretty neat game.